Hello, my name is Adriana Sinaway, and I'd like to first off thank ANDPVA and the Canada Council of the Arts for hosting me today as I take you along through a woodland style fiber art piece that we're going to make. So a little bit about myself. I originate from Manitoulin Island, from Shagwenda First Nation. I lived there for quite a few years, ended up moving to Sudbury, Ontario, and now I'm actually located out in New Brunswick. Lovely little place called Little Chimigway. Um, I've always been in love with doing all different types of art. So I do painting, sculpting, lino, pretty much almost anything you can think of. I've dabbled in, tried it out. And Actually, this is one of my favorites that we're going to be doing today. So what we're actually going to be doing is a process called needle felting. It's something a little bit different that I've been having fun applying woodland style art to, just because it's something different. I haven't seen too much of it done. Um, so today we're going to be covering this piece here. So this is our little majike that we're going to be doing. And what I've done is for the line art for that piece and a colored demo that you can follow along with the colored demo. I'll be posting that on my website. I'm going to put the link down in the bottom here so that you'll have like a color visual to follow along to. And as well, you'll be able to print out the outline to do your own piece. It's going to be a little bit smaller than the size that I showed you here. This was just for, I wanted you to be able to see nice and clear what we're going to be doing, if you even wanted to pause that and just kind of follow along there. So I had a snafu with my printer. It didn't want to color or print out all the colors. So I started coloring in a piece here just to kind of roughly give me the color palette that I had decided and wanted to work with, so I can follow along here. Like I said, I have a fully digital colored piece on my website, so you can have that up as you go along once you get comfortable with these techniques. So quick intro to needle felting, some basics that I find they're really important. So basically what we're doing is what's known as 2D felting. So we're going to be felting down onto a surface, and we're going to be using sheep's wool. There's a couple of different backgrounds that you can use when you do this. So today I'm going to be using, actually I'm going to move my camera down so that I can show you and we can follow along here now instead. So this piece right here that I have laid out, this is actual, this is 100% wool felt. The reason I really like using this is that wool will felt onto wool very, very well. They want to stick together. You have a few other options to use if you don't have access to this or you don't want to buy it. It can be a little bit more expensive. It's not too bad, but not everybody has access to it. So the other thing you can use, I have a little demo piece here. This is store-bought felt that you can buy somewhere, say at like Michael's or even the dollar store. Perfectly acceptable to felt on as well. A lot of times this is mostly polyester. I actually have some stuff that's made from 100% recycled water bottles, which is super cool. I really like that idea. The only thing with that though is because that is a plastic base, I find the wool doesn't want to stick as well to the actual the backing. It can slip out a little bit more. It will felt down. You just got to put in maybe a little bit more work. Another thing you can also felt on is if you just have a piece of regular cotton, like say if you you know, you like doing whatever, you're a seamstress and you have tons of, you know, extra little pieces of, you know, fat quarters and things like that laying around. Really, really perfect. Yeah, you can needle felt on that. I have even personally needle felted onto canvas that I've painted on. That being said, if you ever do want to experiment with that, um, just be mindful of where you've painted and where you're going to be using your needles, because once you punch that hole through that painted section, you're going to notice it. And you can't cover, unless if you cover it with wool, you'd have to go back and touch it up again with paint to cover that hole. So our little piece here, what I've done is, like I said, I've printed out, I printed out a smaller little version of our little turtle here. And so I printed out a couple of them, one for my color demo. I had one that's just the black and white version as well, this size. So what I've done is right here, you can see I have cut his shape around, just because it's going to be easier when I do my transfer onto my fabric. And I'm going to show you a couple of different ways you can do this. So these are some of the pens that I like to use to transfer. So if you don't have access to the main one that I'm using today, there are other options for you to use. So this is just a straight up fabric pen. Very easy to use. It's pretty permanent, so you have to make sure you cover any lines that you make with wool, because you're not going to get that off. Also, if you're going to be working with a darker background, I really suggest getting one of these white gel pens. This is a brand called Jelly Roll. It's going to be, a little bit tackier to mark down the line work, but it works really well. I don't know of any other alternative, to be completely honest, to put down line work onto, say, if you have black felt background or anything like that. So yeah, recommend that Jelly Roll. The other option here too, some people might be familiar with this. This is a water soluble marker. So when you lay down your line work with this, if you go over a patch or you made a mistake, all you got to do is just get some water at the end of a Q-tip and wipe it off, and that line's going to be gone. So with these ones here, the best way to copy down your line work is if you have your stencil and then you lay your fabric over top and then hold it up to a light source, either if you have a light table or if you put it up against the window during the day, and then you're going to, follow along with your marker, and then you'll have that image on your fabric. The method that I'm using today, I have these sulky iron-on transfer pens. I really like these. They can be a little bit of a headache sometimes with, trying to, you'll see on part of my pattern there, I had a little bit of a blotch come out. But what I love about these is you trace your outline, and you can use this same piece of paper to lay down your pattern 2 to 3 times without having to retrace it. So keeping in mind about your transfers, like say with this guy here. So this was originally how it printed out. I traced it with the sulky pen, the iron-on transfer pen. And now the thing is when I go to lay it down and iron it on, he's going to come out opposite of what my design is. So if you don't want to do that, another option is, like I said, if you print this guy off, you can still just hold the paper right up to a light source, like you can see right through here right now, and follow along with your sulky pen or your iron-on transfer pen on this side, and then that way you can lay him down, and then he's going to look exactly like how your paper image looks. So a little trick with the iron-on pens. You won't really see the image through here. Like this one I've already used, so you can kind of see the marks through it. When you're ironing on, you'll be able to notice that the marker kind of like bleeds through the paper. It's not going to get all over your iron, don't worry about that. But that just lets you know that the heat is transferring that image down to your wool. Always keep in mind when you go to check, be very careful too, because I suggest using the iron on a higher setting. So what I usually do is I'll start to iron, one portion of my my paper template, and then I always check and see if it's laid down well enough. And then I'll go ahead and then do the bottom half and then check before I move this, because if you try, you know, lining it up again, it's probably not going to line up exactly the same. So that's how I got this image on. Keep in mind that the piece that you're going to use, think about what you want to do with it afterwards. If you wanted to just take this piece and say, attach it to some clothing, you don't really have to worry too much about the extra space around the side here. But if you want to, I'm going to show you at the end some mounting options for your piece. So with that in mind, just make sure you have a good size border so that, you know, depending on how you want to mount it or place it, you're going to have the space to work with it. Before we begin, one of the things that I always like to do now, I didn't do this at the start, but now I'm starting to enjoy the value of this, is pinning your piece down. And so what that does is when we're needle felting, that keeps it from kind of crunching in more on itself, and it'll keep your picture nice and taut. So you can just use any, you know, like any type of sewing head pin. I like these little ones with the little things at the end so they're easy to come out. Normally I do at the corners and then at the midway points here, and just kind of keeping it tense enough, not super stretched out and tight, but just enough so that it's not, there's not going to be any movement back in as we felt in the middle part. So I'm just going to get this guy back in here. So with those colors that I showed you today, that was just kind of a guideline. You can, you know, give this turtle any colors that you want, any colors that you have available. You could just even do the black line work if you want. It's totally up to you. This is just what I had come up with. So I went through my wool stash, and I'll show you that right now. So these are the colors that I've picked. And like I said, it's just kind of a general, you know, keep with the colors sort of thing, because you're not going to get 100% right on, especially if you're picking colors from, you know, whatever, you see a color you like online, depending on what you have available to you, what colors you can actually get in the wool. So, yeah, so we really need these basics, especially the black. I've got these, oh, let me just get my colored portion here again. So I have my light pink and darker pink for the flowers, the reds for the heart, and up by his neck, some yellows, purples, the two different greens here for our turtle colors here. I'm gonna bring that up again. Sorry for my lighting, it's gonna fade out the colors for a little bit here. When I pull this away, I need a nice super bright room, so it's great for making art. Unfortunately, it kind of washes them out a little bit online. But so those are our colors that we're going to be using today. I have the purple blue here, like I said. So a little bit about felting with needle felting. Sorry. What I'm using here is a merino cross wool. There's a couple of places that I source my wool from. One's from the States and another one is here from Canada. So the place that I get most of my stuff, the majority of my stuff, they use what they call a merino cross wool. And so I want to show you the difference between the fibers of these wools, because this is what you kind of want to needle felt with. This here is a very nice, like, I don't know if you can kind of see how crinkly and basically woolly this type of wool looks. This is a bat, and it needle felts very well because it has a lot of little catches for the needles that we're going to be using to felt with. This here, this is another type of wool you can get. This is what I had when I first started needle felting. I got super excited and ordered a whole kit on eBay or Amazon, something like that, and I got sent a bunch of this type of wool. So this will also needle felt, but if you notice how long and straight and fine these are, what that does is it makes it a little bit more work for you. Again, like I said, you can needle felt with this, but you're going to get a little bit different results than what we're going to be working with today. It'll take you a bit longer to felt with this. If you end up with wool like this, the nice long thin kind, it works really great as fur when you're making animals. So don't despair if that's what you got. Um, but yeah, so I'll also put links in the info at the bottom where I source my wool from and what I recommend. So don't worry about all of that right away, or you can check that out before you start on your piece. So we're just going to move these off to the side, and I'm going to cover the different types of needles, because you're not just going to be felting with a regular type of needle with this. These are felting needles, and I am going to try and see if I can get this to focus. This one might not be the greatest because it is, let's see here. It just doesn't want to pick up right now. But these felting needles, they have little barbs at the end. This one might work better. It's a bit bigger. Yes, right on my fingertip there, you can see kind of the dents and grooves along the edge of the needle. So these are kind of like little hooks on there. It's very rough if I brush up this way, and it's smooth going down this way. So what these do is these help punch your wool through as you're going. It kind of like knots it together. So don't think you can just grab, a sewing needle and punch it through and you're going to get the same results. You do need felting needles for this. To start out with, for 2D felting, I find you can get away with just using a single type of needle or a couple if you want to splurge a little bit. Just like with some other fiber arts, the way that these needles gauge is the higher the number, the finer the needle. So my two favorite to work with are, I'm going to show you one here. Like these ones are marked. So one of the places that I source mine through, Living Felt, they color code their needles. So this is a 42 triangle. This is the finest needle that you can get for felting, and I really like this for detail and finishing work. It's very, very good for that. My main workhorse needle that I use for these 2D feltings is a 36, and I got the spiral because it just does a little bit extra work for you, just because of the way that it's twisted. So I really like 42s and 36 spiral. Again, if you go on to the websites that I recommend, you'll more than likely be able to find these available on there. So today I got a little bit ahead with our piece. So I'm going to do a little magic flip and zoom. So this was our turtle that that I started out with. So what I wanted to show you guys today was we're going to concentrate on the center bit here, because I want to show you a few tricks with felting as we go along. So what we're going to start with here, what I like to do actually, first off, with these these iron-on transfers, I just want to let you know to be mindful of the marks that it makes on here when it does get ironed down. They can be rubbed off. So if you're right-handed, I tend to like to try to go from this way and work over, just because I don't want to be working here and moving along, because the action of needle felting, your hand's going to rub on there and then your design's going to be, rubbed off. And then you'll just be kind of going with the flow, which isn't always the worst. But, if you want to go with the plan, then that's the thing to do. So yeah, so I started out this our little jique here today, earlier. So I'm going to show you how to get felting along where we'll finish off this edge of his shell. And I'm just going to let me see if I can, I'm going to put this here just so you can kind of look at that while we're doing that. So a couple of things with needle felting, always remember, um, these can break. Um, they would normally come like this. I've, purchased handles and yeah, it just makes it way easier on your hand. Normally they come like this and you can felt just holding this on its own. That's perfectly fine. Don't worry about getting handles. I've even seen people make some out of hot glue. They've sat this in hot glue and made a handle out of it. Anyways, um, some things with needle felting, you because of the nature of these needles and how thin they can be, especially that higher one that I told you, the 42, the super thin one, you never want to put your needle in and then move it to the side, or same thing as you're driving wool in, you don't want to start cranking your needle around, because what that's going to do, you're going to snap your needle off and then it's just going to break either in your sculpture if you're making a sculpture, um, or in your foam, and then have fun trying to find that. It's really annoying. Or, you don't want it to fly off and you find it with your foot later on. So my recommendation is when you're felting, always just straight up and down motion. These barbs go all the way to the end. So you don't like going anywhere past this mark here is useless. You're not going to be doing anything with that. And on top of it, you don't want to go too far in, or what's going to happen when you go to remove your piece, you're going to end up removing a chunk of your foam, which is the backing that you want to be working on. There are a couple of different options. There are wool pads that you can get. Some people also make rice bags, and they felt on that. There are tutorials all over online for making those. I really like my foam. Um, so yeah, you don't want to go in too far or your piece is going to stick. And then when you take it off, you're going to rip out a chunk of your foam. You can trim the back off and salvage your piece, but you're going to have ruined your foam then. And then you need new foam when the next time you go to work on a piece. So, like I said, you just want to go straight up and down, or if you are, feeling daring at your first attempt, you can go in on the side, but please make sure you always pull your needle out after you go in and out. Don't put it in and then decide you want to change direction and twist your handle, because you will snap the tip of that needle right off. So what we want to do with a piece like this is we're going to be making this straight line here. So what I like to do is, if I start off with a chunk of wool, I'm going to do this, grab a new chunk, because I realized I was twisting it as I was talking. I've just been doing this for a while, so it's kind of second nature to me. So we have a chunk of wool like this. So you want to grab one end and just kind of very lightly pull it out so that we make like a longer, thinner piece. You don't want to completely separate it off. If it does, it's not a big deal. You can just kind of mash them back together. Like, say if I do this and then I'm like, I didn't want to do that, you can just kind of lightly rub it together and it'll kind of hold. So we want this longer, thinner piece because we got a longer line here. And so doing this here will help you learn how to do the even thinner lines that are required for, say, around the eye and the little feet and everything like that. So first off, we want to tack down our ends. So you can also use your needle. What I'm doing right here is I'm just like pushing over the edge. And I'm getting that starting bit tacked down nice and good. I'm only driving my needle in up to about here. So not very much. You don't need to go, like I said, way in. There are barbs right at the end of these things. if you make a mistake and you also go, you know, say you went off your lines, the nice thing with needle felting is you can just pull it right off, adjust it, and then tack it down again. As we're going along, I'm going to put slight tension. I'm going to twist this to the side here. Sorry, I'm going to move our colored example. I'm going to be putting slight tension on our line here. I'm not super pulling it, but I'm just keeping a nice light even pressure. And so what that does is it helps kind of draw out this wool for our line. And I really like to tack down the edges on a thicker line, and then I go in the middle. So that anchors it very well. And it also keeps those little stray furs. So I'm going to bring this up closer to you, so you can see these little, if you can see the little strays, like if you have little strays here. I use my needle and I'll tuck them back in just along that inside edge of that line and clean it up. And don't worry if your edges are, you know, a little messy at first. It takes practice, and you can always go along and fix that up later as well. So I'm just going to finish this up here. Now I'm just going along faster than I normally would, just so that I can, and if you have excess, you just hold down where you felted down, and then this piece, and then pull off. Don't try and pull it off without holding down your felted piece, or else you're just going to rip up that whole line. Like I had showed you earlier how to remove your little mistake piece. And then we'll just go ahead and tack this down the rest of the way. Like I was saying, I'm just going along a little faster than I normally would. Oh, and you'll also want to remove any sticks here. But yeah, I just want to make sure that I get some of the basics covered before our time runs out. And then, like I said, remove any little sticks and debris, things like that. You'll find them no matter how clean the wool looks at first. Like you're gonna get little fuzzies stuck in it and everything like that. And you know, it's sheep wool. They go through brambles and brush, and all of the companies will try and clean it up as best they can, but they will still inevitably miss some. So you will get little sticks and things like that stuck in your wool. There, so we got that black line tacked down satisfactorily enough. Like I said, after you've done everything, you can go over and fine tune your piece. So I'm going to show you little tricks. We're going to try and make this flower in our turtle a little bit more 3D. As you can see, this is pretty flat. This will also show you how to make that nice little round eyeball here, the pupil in the eye. That I just filled in with white, and I'm going to show you how I did the, oops, why am I grabbing black? It's a yellow flower. It'll show you how to make the black pupil. So a quick little trick here with making round things or things you want to make 3D. I found if you just kind of, you know, you grab a swatch like this, This might be a little bit much here. We'll take some off. I found if you kind of just sort of fold in your wool pieces to get like a general round shape. So we can see how much, I'm going to try and block some of the light. We can see how much smaller our chunk of wool got. And it has all of the loose ends are tucked in at the bottom. And we're going to place that right over where our flower middle is. And we're going to find the edges of our design here. And like I said, we're going to tack along that edge. And what this is going to do is I'm going to turn this to the side for you. You can already see how much puffier this section is. And like I said, I am going in on this side. I'm just driving this. You don't see me fully pulling this needle out because I'm just going in and out the same spot. I'm not moving it around. But if you want to move it, you can just take your time, fully pull the needle out. So as long as you tack down these edges, this piece will stay, really well like that. So if you wanted it that nice and puffy, you can just keep it like that. If you wanted it a little bit less, you can go and felt right over the top. Just very, very gently. Because if you go too hard as well, what you're going to start noticing is there'll be little needle marks left on the top. That's where moving down or up to that finer needle really helps out. So that was my 36 spiral. And this is my 42 triangle here. Even finer, it goes in, and I find that the needle marks that it leaves aren't as dramatic. So I'm just going to continue with my 36 just to clean up the edges here. So that's how we'll make a great big round flower center. Now to make that pupil, it's kind of the same idea, how I tacked around the edges for it. But because it's a smaller scale, what I did was I just took a little bit of fluff, rolled it, and really I'm just rolling it between my fingers and making a little ball. Just the actions of your hands will actually felt this the wool a little bit itself. So you've already kind of made a little chunk like that, and you can just felt that right in, just as it was, and shape it like your flower center. Just keep working your pieces. Now, if you don't want to have a big puffy flower center or petals or anything like that, or you're trying to save on wool a bit, just take a little bit. Just take a little bit of your yellow. Let me see here. And you can just, like way thinner amount. And you would just, I'm going to just felt it right onto my foam here. You can go right around, and the more you felt it, the flatter it'll get. So big difference between the big puffy innard there and the flat one. Piece there. So yeah, get that tacked down. Now, like I had color coded our flower. Now these petals, because I have a big thick um, middle piece, I kind of want this to match. So what I'm going to do is again just fold the piece over um, and then in half. And then that's going to make like this nice little kind of petal shape. But I'm still going to be needle felting the whole thing. This will just help me kind of, work a shape. This is a little bit too big, so I'm going to cut that in half. So again, just kind of rolled. So I rolled it. I'll start that out again. Fold it in half. And then there's our petal bottom here. So I'm going to take my needle and just felt that bottom portion down first. The attachment point where it would be up against the little middle part. And then now for this blossom chunk here, I'm just going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to take and just felt right along where the edges are on my print. And you can just, like I said, just grab any little bit of excess and just tuck it in under there with your needle. And for this one here, I'm actually going to felt the petal down just a little bit more than this piece here. So I'm just going to go up the center. Just gently make that petal. So it is still quite a bit thicker than, the heights of the feet. But it does still have that little bit of height there. And just tuck in your edges. And you have your first petal down. All right. So I'm going to move on to one of the leaves here. And this will show you how to just straight felt a flat leaf instead of adding any dimension, just because this piece here, we don't want it sticking out quite as much as the flower. The flower is its own piece. As you're working this too, don't be, because it is a fiber art, don't be constrained by thinking you just have to straight work with wool. Like this raw wool, you can also incorporate yarn into your piece. That like is especially yarn that has a wool content will needle felt down nicely as well. Another thing you can also do is if you wanted to incorporate embroidery, beadwork onto your piece after it's done, that's another great option too. Kind of gives you your own unique touch onto the piece. There's a lady out here as well, out in New Brunswick, and there's the other artist. She needle felt sculptures, and she's started incorporating birch bark and quill work into hers as well. So that's really cool. I was super excited when I saw that because I had actually been thinking of doing that, and then I saw someone else do it, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome, because their their quill workability is way beyond what I'm capable of right now. I've just started out working with some quills, and beadwork as well. My beading is very beginnerish, if you want to put it that way. I still need to learn some of the techniques to do it faster and better. Um, so yeah, so this piece here, like I said, going back, we're just making that flat leaf. As you can see, I've just been kind of using thinner wisps of wool to fill in the area, keeping mindful of my pattern. You don't need a whole lot of wool when you're doing this, like unless if you're adding a lot of bigger elements like this. I'm gonna actually show you. I'm gonna bring my little gauge here. This was a sculpture that I did a while ago. So something like this will take significantly more wool, like say black wool, than this 2D piece ever will. There are some tricks with this too. You can use like a cheaper wool to fill in the middle. Oh, excuse the noise. There's very rarely ever ambulances here, so if you can hear that. um, so yeah, so you know, something like this will take more wool, but it's really fun. If you want to branch out after, this is what I would really recommend starting out with. It lets you learn to control your needles a lot better as well. Um, so yeah, lots of fun things you can do with this stuff. Tons and tons. It's also very forgiving. So like you had seen me rip up that one piece of wool. I find there's really is no waste, because even if you felted down a chunk and it's not really good for laying back down on the piece you're working with, don't ever throw it out. I have a bag of scraps that I keep. Um, and so this is all of them. Back when I was teaching in-person classes, a lot of times some people would mix up colors and things like that, and I'd be left with a table full of little floofs. So what I do is I save them, because like I said in that sculpture of the little cat that I showed you, this is what I'll use on the inside instead. There's plain white wool that you can use, or like I said, why waste it? It's still perfectly good wool. It just might not be the colors that you were thinking for your piece. Makes perfect filler. So just always hold on to these scraps. Get a little baggie and start filling it up. So now some people might not be also comfortable felting with pure wool. That's perfectly understandable. Or I should say real wool at all. There are a few options out there for you as well. There are so there are other fiber options. There are bamboo wools and things like that. They are super silky though, and um, I'm not. I've used them for a different type of felting called wet felting. They work perfectly for that. Um, they might be a little too slippery for needle felting. That being said, though, a lot of the uh, knitting yarn that you can find in stores, even the fully acrylic stuff, they've made them now where it's they're kind of same-ish texture, right? Because they want, you want your sweaters to look, warm and fuzzy. You can take some of that acrylic yarn and use that to felt with. Again, you might have to just put in a little bit more wrist or elbow work, elbow grease, to get that felted into your background. But it's possible, just because I know that there are some people that they're allergic to sheep's wool, or they're just, for their own reasons, they don't want to work with animal fibers. So those are a couple of options for you. And like I said, there's the backgrounds that were 100% recycled water bottle, or you can work with cotton um, or linen, things like that. Those are great backgrounds. So again, this is just a really quick little demo. 45 minutes isn't nearly enough to to fully go through a piece and finish it. But that's what I'm going to try and keep to. I know I'm pretty much there. Um, I just want to show you really quickly how to make your fine black lines, just like we did here. It's still keeping the same idea, but on a smaller scale. So I have some little branches here that I'm going to make on my turtle. And they're just these ones here. So we're going to go up and make these little branches. So with these finer lines, I find if you stretch out your wool into a thinner line than you did for this side of it, and I find it a little bit goes a long way for these thinner lines. And then what I like to do is I actually will roll it between my thumb and forefinger, and that just kind of like gives it a little bit extra support as you're pulling on the wool. Because with these thin amounts, it's really easy for it to just break apart when you're doing thinner line work. So again, we're going to tack down our starting point really well. And this time we're going to keep it a little bit of a tighter tension than we did on making this piece here. Still not super hauling on it because we don't want it to break apart. But we're going to keep a little bit tighter tension because that gives us, like you can see how thick and loose that is. I'll bring this up closer to the camera. Unfortunately, I can't felt right here because I don't have enough support. But you can see how loose it is there. And when I pull that tension, how nice and fine that line gets. And that's what we want to felt down. That's what we're going to felt down. And we just follow along. Now, normally, I just really wanted to show you that how to make this line. So normally when you're going to be doing your turtles, and then again, hold it down and pull off your excess. What I would recommend is that you go ahead before you start doing these fine line works on here. I would really recommend that you can go ahead and do your flowers. And I would fill in this green here and all of these, the main focal points, like our flower buds, the hearts, the leaves on these branches here especially. And then once all this green background is, and then these leaves are done, then I would come in and do your fine black lines. Just because it'll be a lot easier than if you have all these black lines to work around and then you're trying to fill in your green in between all of it. It can be done. That's fine. That's just my preference. That's what I would normally have done. So, like I said, you know, you just keep that that tension on there and you'll get really nice fine lines. If it's way too thin for you, just go ahead and lay down another one beside it, sorry. If it's way too thin, just grab it and pull it up and your mistake is gone. And we'll try again. So those are the really, really simple basics of needle felting. So I've shown you how to get your, oh, I'm just going to move my needle here. So I've shown you how to get kind of your flat leaf. Again, I did not go over this with my 42, so you can see all the kind of little indents from my needle on there. And you can see how we got our puffy flower center and our leaf started. And we're just going to keep going all the way around to do that. Um, but yeah, so those are the super basics of it. Have fun with it. Like I said, just watch your needles so that you're not breaking them, but don't be don't be freaked out if you do. When I first started, I broke quite a few needles. um, so yeah, so just pretend we're done our piece really quickly. I'm going to show you some mounting options. So I'm going to pull out my little holder downers here. Now this is fine with a smaller piece that I'm doing this. I'm comfortable doing it. If I was doing a bigger portrait or something, probably not. Oh, this is the satisfying part when you're finished a piece and you can just like take it off the foam. So your back's going to look like this and it feels so nice. I always find that a cute little bonus. Um, so yeah, for mounting, you have a couple of options. There are embroidery hoops that you can get. So a lot of them are wood that you would find. Now this one here is a square one. Just make sure you can ignore this white part because that'll be underneath. So that would fit our turtles. Um, that's one option. You have those, or there's an oval. Same thing, would fit our turtle very nicely. One of the other options you can do is you can get a frame like this. Now this one, I don't know if it might actually fit this turtle. We'll see. Um, so that I just got, it's a little bit small. He will go right to the edge. That's fine if that's what you want. So for this option here too, I really like these. What I do, if I really want framing hoops like this, is honestly, I'll just go to like a dollar store, and they always have the super cheap canvases there. So I will often just get one of those and then I rip the canvas right off and keep the frame. You might be able to paint on the canvas afterwards if you want. But yeah, so I keep a couple of these around. So with these, you can stretch it right over this, and I use a staple gun when I mount mine like that, and you can just staple them right down, and then you would have like a nice hanging thing. You can put a little hanger on the back, and voila, you got you know you have your little framed turtle to hang up. Um, Another thing, like I said too, if you wanted, depending on what fabrics you use, you can even, cut this out and sew it onto a jacket or whatever. This stuff is really durable. The only thing with felting, the colored wool, sorry, is if you leave this in direct sunlight for extended periods of time, what's going to happen is your wool colors will get faded out. So just be mindful of that, depending on like where you're going to place it, how you're going to use it. So yeah, that's the basics of needle felting. Like I said, it can be time consuming. I found it's very relaxing. So just have fun with it. Play around, experiment, mix colors, you know. I'd really like to see your turtles after too. So if you ever want to tag me on the pieces that you've done, I'm on Facebook and Instagram as well under Raven Star Studio. Um, so yeah, once again, I'd like to thank ANDPVA and the Canada Council for the Arts for hosting me. I had a lot of fun. Sorry we didn't get too much done today, but like I said, it can take a while. So, yeah, thank you for joining me today. Bye now.